Hey guys, glad you could come back for another video in this basic networking series. Today we're going to cover a little bit about backing up, upgrading, and restoring our Cisco devices. So it's important that you understand the basics of uploading or downloading files from your Cisco devices and how to update them, because this can provide redundancy in case of a system failure, and it can also give you the ability to restore a known good configuration in case an upgrade has unintentionally broken part of the network. So on each of our Cisco devices, it's important to understand some of the storage that it has. First, it'll have ROM or read-only memory. This is non-volatile, which means that if the device is powered down or loses power, this does not disappear. This is going to hold your bootstrap and postcode as well as the ROM monitor. Then we have flash. This is non-volatile as well and is going to contain the iOS and backups. We have RAM, which is going to be volatile, meaning we power down that device, we lose all the contents that are in here. This is where our running configuration is stored, and that's why it's important to save your work. And then NVRAM, which is non-volatile. This is where the startup config is going to be stored. So let's run through a couple new commands that we're going to cover in this lab. There is a lot more that you could learn about backing up and upgrading your Cisco devices, and I do recommend you go out and research a little bit on your own. But for the purpose of this lab and this video, we're going to keep it really basic. So we'll hop into these commands. The first is dir followed by a directory. That'll display the contents of the directory that you chose. We could also follow that up with a question mark to show the different directories that we can choose from. Show version. This is going to display the software version, the flash file, the configuration register, etc. Similarly, show flash would display the files that we have in flash memory. A powerful command we have is copy from a source to a destination. Just like it sounds, it'll copy a file from the chosen source to the chosen destination. And Cisco actually has a little prompt that'll walk you through picking the source IP address and the file name, and it makes it a lot simpler. We can also do copy with a question mark to see all the commands available. Like we said in previous videos, the question mark is a very powerful command. If you're ever unsure of how to complete a command, just throw a question mark in there. Reload. This will reload your device with the startup config that it has saved. If you issue the show file system command, it'll display the device's file system. If we wanted to change the configuration register, we could issue this command, config-register followed by the value. Now, per each device, this needs to be set to a specific value because Cisco does something where it looks at this value to figure out how to start and boot the device. We have the command write followed by erase or memory, which will either save or erase your non-volatile memory. It's similar to a copy run start. Then down here we have delete VLAN.dat. So if we're dealing with VLANs and you put them on your switches, there's a special file called VLAN.dat that actually saves part of that configuration. So just reloading your device won't delete all of your VLAN information. If you really want to reset it, you've got to delete this file. And our final command is erase followed by start, which will erase the startup configuration. So if we move onward into the lab, if you haven't already, I recommend you download this from the link in the video description below. We can see that our goal is going to be to back up and restore the local router's configuration during an upgrade. So that means we're going to be dealing with this local router, and we're probably going to be reaching out to this server over here to save and back up our configuration. Hopping into the tasks, task 1 says verify connectivity with the internet by pinging 10.10.10.156 from the PC. So let's do that. Hop into our desktop command prompt. We'll go ping 10.10.10.156. We'll give Packet Tracer a second to work out its kinks. And we see we can indeed reach that device, which we're calling the internet. We move on to the next task. It says review and take note of the current running configuration of the local router and the current iOS image. So we hop into the local router. We can hop into privileged exec mode and we can do show run, short for show running config. And here we can scroll through by pressing the space bar and we can see the current configuration that's set up on this device. The other command we can issue is show version. By issuing this, we can see something like the system image file that is currently booting. as well as if we scroll to the bottom, we can see the value that the configuration register is set to. So that should be good for task number 2. Hopping into task number 3, it says back up the running configuration of the local router to the TFTP server at 192.168.0.200 as backup config. So if we hop into our local router, we can go copy run, because we're trying to back up the running configuration, and we're going to back it up to a TFTP server. So copy running-config TFTP. Here it prompts us for that address of that server, which is 192.168.0.200. And then it wants to know what we want to call that file. We're going to call it backup config. You see there that it's backing up that configuration and writing it to the server. And that should be all that we need to do for that task. If we move on to task number 4, it says copy the newer image of 2900 software located in the TFTP server to flash storage of the local router. So the file name that we're going to be grabbing is right here. Let's hop in here, make sure we can see that. So we're going to be doing a copy from TFTP into Flash. Hit enter. The address of that TFTP server again is 192.168.0.200. And then the file name that we're trying to grab off of there is going to be C2900-universal K9-MZ.SPA.155-3.M4A.bin. We hit enter. We want to just keep that same name when we copy it over, so we'll hit enter again. And we see here now it is copying that file to our device. Looks like that's been done successfully. Let's go ahead and move on to the next task. It says verify the value of the config register is OX2102, and then review and change the boot variable to the new iOS file. Verify this change in the running config. So we can look at that config register value with the show version command. At the very bottom we can see it is indeed set to 0x2102. Then we need to review and change the boot variable. So to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to issue the show run command, and we're only going to look for a part of this. We're going to look to include boot. So if nothing's returned there, then that means we don't have to remove anything there. There's nothing currently set, and we can move on to the next step of changing the boot variable to that file that we just loaded in. So if we go into global configuration mode, and then we say boot system flash, and we'll give it that file name that we want it to be booting from, which was C2900 universal K 9-MZ.SPA.155-3.M4A.bin. Enter. Now that we've set that, we can exit out of here, and if we were to run that same show run command, including boot, we can see now we have set the boot variable to boot from that file. So looking at the next task, it says save the configuration and reload the router for it to take effect. So command, we could issue copy run start here, but we're going to use a similar command of write memory. And then, of course, we need to reload the device. Go ahead and confirm that reload. And now we'll wait for the device to reload. Looks like that is completed successfully. So we go ahead and hop into privileged exec mode. We can now move on to task number 7, which says verify the local router is now running the newer iOS image. So to verify that, we're going to go ahead and issue our show version command. And we can see now the system image file is that newer one that we pulled down from the TFTP server. Okay, so then it says, then pull the saved backup config from the TFTP server into the startup config of the new router. So we'll go ahead and go copy TFTP startup. The address of that TFTP server is 192.168.0.200. We'll hit enter. The file name that we have is backup config. And we want to go ahead and call that startup config so that it overwrites our current startup config. We'll let that work for a second. Now the final part of step 7 says copy the startup config to the running config. So we can just do a copy start run. That is the destination file name, running-config. And that went ahead and copied that into our running configuration. So now that we've copied everything back in and we've upgraded the router, we want to do our final task, which says verify connectivity with the internet has been restored by pinging 10.10.10.156 from the PC. So we go back into the PC and issue that same ping command. Give Packet Tracer a second to work. We see that we have indeed restored connectivity and our upgrade was successful. So guys, that was a really basic intro to copying and restoring configurations from Cisco devices. Definitely look further into this if you're interested in it. It is a very valuable skill to have. Things go wrong all the time in the networking world, and it's really convenient to have backups on hand. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you in the next one.